Hello and welcome to episode number 22 of Giddy Knits. Today is Thursday the 18th of January 2018. Happy New Year everyone. This is my first podcast for the new year. So welcome. For anyone who's new, and I know that I've had a few new subscribers throughout December. So for anyone who is new, hello and welcome to the podcast. I'm Helen, as I'm sure you've all realised by now. I imagine that the new subscribers that I've had over December has been as a result of my Vlogmas, which was so much fun. So you'll have got a little bit of a taste of me and who I am and what I do, hopefully, unless my Vlogmas was completely random. But yeah, so I am Helen. And you can find me on Instagram as Giddy Helen, and I tend to share my knitting and sort of family stuff with that account. And I am the yarn dyer behind Giddy Yarns, and you can find my hand-dyed yarn on Instagram as Giddy Yarns. I tend to keep them separate just because I don't want to spam my yarn account with pictures of my boys, which I haven't said. I'm coming to you, as I always do for my podcasts, from Surrey in the United Kingdom, where I live with my husband Tom and my two boys, Arthur, who is 4, and Jasper, who is 14 months, just over a year. Yeah, 14 months, something like that. I'm starting to lose track. Yeah, I said you can find me on Instagram. You can also find me on Ravelry as Giddy Helen as well. And we do have a Ravelry group for the podcast. It's not the most active, that's the word I want. It's not the most active Ravelry group, and I'd love to change that this year. There are a few threads up there, and I do try and respond when people put messages in the threads. I do try and respond as quickly as I can. I check it most days. So please come on over and come and join in on the Ravelry group. That would be lovely. Okay, so what else have I got to say at the top of the episode? Show notes. There were no show notes for the last podcast, and I'm sorry about that. What's that? Something's falling over. Sorry. And I am sorry about that. I just didn't get around to it. With doing Vlogmas and the lead up to Christmas, things got away from me, as I'm sure you can understand. But there will be show notes for this episode, and show notes can be found in the Ravelry group. And they can also be found on my website, which is giddyyarns.com. And they will both be linked down below in the description box underneath. So you should be able to find them quite easily. What else? If you enjoyed the episode, please give it a thumbs up. That gets my videos out there a little bit more, gets them noticed, which would be lovely. And also hit subscribe, because that will keep you updated with any new videos that I put out. Okay, so what have I got for you this week? Well, I'm going to start with a couple of announcements. I've then got some finished objects, I've got some works in progress, I've got some new cast ons. I was going to touch quickly on a little bit of blanket progress. I've got quite a bit of yarny goodness, and then I've got just a little bit of shop news at the end as well. And I haven't said, this is a knitting podcast. I always forget to say that. But if you've stumbled across me, I am sure you will have realised that. Hopefully, the name, you know, Giddy Knits, and the yarn in the background, it kind of gives it away. So anyway, right, announcements. Let's delve straight into the announcements. Okay, my first announcement is that there is a giveaway running in the Ravelry group. Currently for, which I've just realised I haven't actually got out. Bear with me a second. Here it is. Okay, so there is a giveaway running in the Ravelry group currently for this wonderful bag from Naughty Knitting Sacks. And I am currently using a few of these bags, so you'll get to see them as I go through. Which is this gorgeous grey outside. And I've talked about these on the podcast, and I also showed them on some of my Vlogmas. And I love these. The outside of the bags are perfectly normal. They've got a wonderful sort of loop handle system, so they just close like that. I've loved that. I've been hanging this on things and then knitting from it, which has been really, really good. You could also, I guess, hang it on your wrist and knit as you walk as well. But then the linings of these bags are a little bit naughty. hence the name Naughty Knitting Sack. So this particular one that is up for giveaway has got rude words inside, which I will show you now. So if you don't want to see them, then look away. But it has got wonderful rude words inside there. But yeah, you could be knitting with this in public and no one would know. So as I said, there is a giveaway currently running in the Ravelry group for this. There's only been 4 people enter. As I said, this giveaway, my Ravelry group is quite quiet. But if you want to be up with the opportunity to win this bag, then please head on over there and enter. I was planning on drawing a winner today for this, but I've sort of changed my mind. So the next time I podcast in 2 weeks' time will actually be my podiversary. Unbelievably, I put my first podcast episode up on the 31st of January 2017. So when I record in 2 weeks' time, it will be the same week that I put my first episode up. So what I thought I would do is I'm going to combine this giveaway with a podiversary giveaway. So I'm going to change it a little bit. I'll go over to the Ravelry group and I'll just change the post slightly. I might change the prompt as well, but if you've already entered, then don't worry, your posts will still count. I'm not going to change anything like that. But you will now have the opportunity to win not only this bag, but as it's a podiversary giveaway, I thought I would also include some yarn. I've got no idea what that yarn's going to be. I would imagine it will be some Valentine yarn because I'm currently dyeing Valentine yarn for the shop. So I will probably just set aside a skein of Valentine yarn or something like that. I haven't quite decided yet. I will set aside some yarn from the shop and it will be combined with this wonderful bag, and the lucky winner will get both of those things. And I will draw for the winner on the next podcast. So please head on over to the Ravelry group because you could be in with a chance of winning this wonderful bag and some yarn from Giddy Yarns. And I thought I'd just make it a little bit bigger as a celebration of me having done this for a year, unbelievably. Yeah, a whole year of podcasting. Okay, so that was my first announcement. And my second announcement, I'm going to have to drink lots of tea. Sorry, I've still got quite a cough from this virus I had before Christmas. So, yeah, I need to keep myself lubricated. Not quite the word I want, but you know what I mean. Okay, so for my second announcement, I am planning on hosting a knit-along. Now, I took part in the collaborative knit-along in the summer stripe-along, and it was really, really, really fun. And I'd love to do another knit-along. Now, obviously, with my Ravelry group not being particularly active, and I've not got masses of subscribers, I think there's 160 of you, which for me, I think is amazing. But, you know, we're not up to the 5,000s like some other podcasters are. Anyway, so I was going to host a knit-along, but I'm going to do it slightly differently. Right, let me tell you what it's going to be. So the knit-along is going to be called the New-along. And the idea is that you knit or crochet or even sewing, actually. I'd be willing to accept sewing posts if it's something that people do. So anything like that. But it needs to be a new to you skill or a new to you technique. So if you've never crocheted before, by all means, crochet something. If you're learning a new technique in knitting, this was kind of inspired by an Instagram friend of mine, Sarah. Hello. And we were talking on Instagram about, I can't remember what I was saying. I was saying something about I wanted to do more lace work in the new year. And she was saying about wanting to learn brioche. And she suggested a knit-along. And I thought, you know what, that's not a bad idea. There's quite a lot of things I'd like to have a go at this year. So I thought this would be an opportunity to try it. So yeah, the general idea is that it is a new to you technique or a new to you skill. It's as simple as that, really. There are a few rules. Okay, so it's going to run until the 31st of March to give you plenty of time. I am also going to allow whips cast on after the 1st of January. So basically the knit along is kind of running from the 1st of January until the 31st of March. But obviously it's the 18th of January today and I've not announced it yet. But if you've cast on this year, then that's fine. You can count it. That's not a problem. And I'm not going to have a minimum yarn requirement, but I am going to say it needs to be a finished object. So that doesn't count things like blanket squares, or even I'm not going to include like crochet squares. I hope people can understand that, but I'm more than happy to accept ornaments or toys or anything like that, as long as the actual knitted thing is a finished item, a finished object. So if you knit a whole blanket out of crochet squares or a cushion cover or something like that, then that is absolutely fine. You know, I'd even be willing to accept sort of dishcloths if it's a new to you technique that you're using in a dishcloth or something like that, because to me that's a finished object, but not just sort of squares added to a blanket and each square being an entry, because I don't think that's fair. And it's not a finished object in my mind. But there is no minimum in terms of the yardage that you need to complete. Okay, so I'm just looking down at my show notes and trying to remember what I'm saying. Yeah, okay, so I'm also, this is what I'm going to do slightly differently. I am going to run it on Instagram and on Ravelry. Because my Ravelry group is not overly active, I wanted, and I get I get more interaction from my podcast via Instagram, I find, than I do in the Ravelry group. So I thought I'd run it on both places. So on Instagram, you can use the hashtag GK, so for Giddy Knits, GK New Along 2018 to share your whips and your progress and stuff like that. And then when you're entering your finished object, use the hashtag GK New Along 2018 FO, so finished object at the end. And that is the hashtag that I will use to find entries. And then on Ravelry, it'll be much simpler because I will just have a Ravelry thread in the group for finished objects, and you can enter your finished objects in that thread. By all means, enter every single finished object is a separate entry, so you could enter as many times as you want to, as many things as you get finished. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to compile the entries into one spreadsheet, and I will use random number generator to draw prize winners from that. So if you've entered so you are allowed to enter your object on both Instagram and in the Ravelry group. So I'm trying to encourage participation and interaction, basically, is what I'm saying. So the more you interact in terms of, if you post on both Instagram and in the Ravelry group, then you've got 2 entries. But at the same time, I'm also aware that some people don't use Instagram and they only use Ravelry, and the other way around. You know, some people tend to interact on Instagram, but they don't really use Ravelry or Ravelry groups very much. But if you use both, then brilliant. And if you are new to Instagram, and you make it clear that you are new to Instagram, and I can see that you're new to Instagram to come and join Instagram for the knit along, then I might even give you an extra entry because it would be a new to you technique or a new to you skill. As for prizes, there's definitely going to be 2 prizes from Giddy Yarns. I am planning on that for certain. Again, I've got no idea what they're going to be yet, but I'm sure I will come up with something before the end of the knit along, and once I do, I will show you what they are. But they will be yarny prizes. But also, you know, if anybody out there is watching and you are a maker, then please contact me if you'd be willing to donate a prize. That would be absolutely fantastic. I'm quite excited about this, and there's quite a few projects that I'm hoping to cast on that are new to me techniques. I mean, for me particularly, colourwork mittens is one thing that I want to knit, and I've got the yarn for that. I also wanted to try 2 at a time socks, and I've got some yarn to knit some socks for Tom, which I thought I might try that with. But yeah, so they're kind of what I'm thinking. But I thought it would be fun, but I did think I would run it on both Instagram and Ravelry so that there would be a little bit more engagement, hopefully. I hope that makes sense. I will put all the information about the knit along down below the video. so that if you don't come to Instagram and you don't come to the website, then all the knit along information will be down below. Right, I think that is everything to do with that. So after, I don't know, nearly 15 minutes of chatting, let's get into the knitting content. Okay, so I have got quite a few finished objects for you. I'm just going to turn my show notes over. Sorry if I jiggle the camera. I've got, oh dear, sorry. I've got quite a few finished objects for you. That's what I was trying to say. I will start with the ones I finished last year. And that is these little hat and mittens for Arthur. I decided in the middle of December, and I'm sure you'll have seen some of this on Vlogmas if you watched my Vlogmas, to cast Arthur on a hat and mittens for Christmas, because he said he wanted a pair of mittens. He wanted me to knit him a pair of mittens. And I don't know if you'll remember this yarn, but a while back I made a bit of a mistake when I was dyeing up some light grey yarn for the shop, and I ended up getting some turquoise in it. So I added a rainbow to it and just kept it for myself. And that's what I used for this pattern. But I held 2 strands of fingering weight yarn double. So it's got quite a sort of a mild effect to it, which is quite fun. And it was really, really quick and really, really simple. So this is the Barley hat by Tin Can Knits, which is part of their Simple collection, which is their free collection. And it's designed for worsted weight yarn, but I held, as I said, 2 strands of fingering weight yarn double. It's a little bit out of shape because he did wear this skiing. And he wore it under his helmet as well, so it probably needs another good block, but it's fine. It's a hat, you know, it just goes on his head. And then I also knit him a little pair of mittens. These are going to be small for him quite quickly, but he's really, really happy with them. So again, these are the maize mitts, the maize mittens, which again is part of the Simple collection by Tin Can Knits. They're knit in reverse stocking stitch with sort of a rib detail down the side. But they're really fun, and I was so pleased with this. I managed to get this finished on Christmas Eve, just leaving myself enough time to do my Christmas Eve cast on. But yeah, he was really, really pleased when he opened them on Christmas Day. So that is my first finished object for this week, both of which have been worn. But then I also finished, so my next 2 finished objects are from this year. And the first thing I finished this year is Arthur's metamorphic jumper, finally. And here it is. Again, this has been worn. So it probably needs a bit of a block, but it's not been too bad. It's not too bad, actually. But I'm so pleased with it. It did grow when I blocked it, which is really good because it actually fits him really, really nicely. I was worried it was going to be too small. You might notice a slight lack of buttons, but to be fair, I don't think it really needs it when he's wearing it. I finished this just before the ski holiday, and which was last week. Finished this just before the ski holiday, and I didn't have any buttons that were suitable, and I'd completely forgotten to get buttons when we went shopping. So he just had to put up without buttons. And to be fair, I'm not even sure if I'm going to add buttons. Maybe at some point, but it really doesn't need it when he's wearing it. It's quite a tight neck anyway. So yeah, I really don't think it misses it. But I'm really pleased with how the colour work has blocked out. It's been a little bit bumpy in places, but not too bad. And he absolutely loves it. And I am so, so, so happy with this. This pattern was fantastic. So this is the Metamorphic sweater by Paper Daisy Creations. And I've completely forgotten her actual name. Is it Lisa K. Ross? I think it's Lisa K. Ross, Paper Daisy Creations. Yeah, Paper Daisy Creations. And it's stunning. This was kind of my first proper colour work in ages. And I really enjoyed it actually. Hence I want to do a little bit more. I wouldn't say I'm any good at it. It's still very new to me. And I used for the yarn is Drops Extra Fine Merino. So it's a DK weight yarn, very, very reasonable. And I used 3 colourways. The grey, I think, was colour number 5. And then the 2 purples, the light purple and the dark purple, were 21 and 22. But I can't remember which order they were in. But it will be on my project page for this on Ravelry. Yeah, so that is finished object number 2. And yeah, I'm really, really pleased with this, as I keep saying. He absolutely adores it. And he was wearing it in the airport on our way on holiday. And I just kept looking at him wearing it, and I thought to myself, you know what? Him wearing that, no one would know that that's hand knit. No one would know that that wasn't bought in a shop. And I always think that's such a good thing with a pattern that comes, you know, when you knit a pattern up and it looks handmade. It doesn't look handmade. That sounds horrible. But do you know what I mean? Sometimes knitted items can look handmade. And there's nothing wrong with that. You know, sometimes you want something to look handmade. But I just think, you know, when something looks almost professional, I think it's such a testament to how the pattern is written. That yeah. Anyway, I'm really impressed with it, and I'm really happy with it. And now I need to start thinking about what I'm going to knit the boys for next year. So that is finished object number 2. I have got one more finished object to show you. And that is eventually, finally, my Glacier socks. So these socks are knit out of, it's just a vanilla sock. And they are knit out of Giddy yarns. Well, kind of Giddy yarns. So this was my test run for my first ever self-striping yarn. So I'm kind of calling it the Glacier colourway, but actually the colours in here are slightly different. I think the blue in the Glacier is slightly darker, and it's also next to the grey. The order of the stripes is changed slightly in the Glacier colourway, and the tonality of this blue has changed slightly in the Glacier colourway as well. So these were kind of a test run, if that makes sense. But I'm really pleased with them, and I'm really pleased to have them finished. Unfortunately, they can't count towards this year's box of socks, because obviously I cast them on in 2017. But I am going to make myself a little box of Christmas socks, some of which will count towards the box of socks. So the box of socks, Cal, is a knit along hosted by Kristen of Vine Yarns and the Yarngasm podcast. And the idea is that you knit yourself 12 or more pairs of socks within the year. And then you put them all in a box and you take a photograph, and that's your entry into the knit along. And I did complete that this year, and you'd have seen that in one of my Vlogmas videos. One of my Vlogmas videos is a specific video about my box of socks. So if you're interested in that, then just hop back a few videos and you'll see it. But I decided that I'd quite like to have a little box of Christmas socks, which I'm going to count. So ones I knit this year, completely knit this year, will count towards my 12 for my box of socks. But I thought it might be nice and it might be fun to just have a few set aside, which would be specifically for kind of December. And that's my plan anyway. So what I'm trying to say is that these are going to go into that. Because I think they're such a wintry colourway. I think that would be really fun. So this is my first pair of socks for my little Christmas box of socks. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. But they're finished. Did I need to say anything else about these? Oh, I didn't really tell you about the yarns. Well, I did tell you about the yarns, but I didn't really tell you about them. So this is my my Giddy sock yarn base. So it's a 75-25 merino nylon. This was a, oops, I've just dropped it on the floor. As I said, this was the Drops Extra Fine Merino. So it's 100% wool with merino content, I think. It's very, very soft actually, and it's really nice to work with. I used the baby merino, which I'm pretty sure is the same makeup, but in a fingering weight, for Arthur's Flax Light. And again, I'm really, really pleased with sort of how this knits up. It's really, really nice. And this one, again, this is my Giddy sock base. So again, it's a 75-25 superwash merino nylon in that one as well. Yeah, So, one more thing. I was going to talk about tension. And I'm looking at these. I can't remember which one I knit first. I think this is the second sock I knit. Now, my gauge on this has gone a little bit all over the place, and my tension on this has gone a little bit all over the place, which you can see particularly here where I'm really getting quite a visible join almost, where my magic loop has joined. I have made a bit of a change in how I knit my socks. So I've started knitting socks on 2.5mm needles. I was knitting them on 3 because I am a very tight knitter. But I've decided that actually I quite like the slightly tighter gauge of the 2.5mm. So my plan this year is to do that. And I had finished this sock on 3mm needles. And then I knit my Christmas Eve cast on 2.5mm needles. I then, oops, I've dropped one. I then came back to this one on 3mm needles, and I think I was just knitting that much looser, having worked on the smaller needles. So it kind of sent my gauge a little bit all over the place. But I'm sure they're still going to fit fine. So I'm not too worried. But yeah, I just want my socks to be knit at a slightly tighter gauge, basically. Okay. So what else was I going to show you? I think that is it for finished objects. We shall move on to works in progress. Now, I've only got one work in progress that you've seen before. So for anyone who's new, I have 2 sections with current knitting. I tend to have works in progress and then new cast-ons. So works in progress tends to be things that you've seen before and you're seeing progress on them currently. And then new cast-ons are works in progress that you haven't seen before, that I've cast on since the last podcast. It's quite self-explanatory really, isn't it? But the only current whip that I have got that you've seen before is my breathing space. Now, I have picked this back up. I haven't made a massive dent in it, but I thought I would just show it now for the new year, so we can kind of see where I'm at with it and where I'm going, basically. I have picked this back up again since Christmas, and I've been really, really, really enjoying it. And I'm looking forward to carrying on with it. So here it is. I'm trying to work out, I think that must be the back. As you can see, I've done all the yoke, I've separated for the sleeves, I've got to here. I finished the short row shaping, and I am now working down the body. It's a bit awkward to show because the needles are a little bit short for it, but I am now working down the body, working the increases and decreases as the pattern obviously tells me to. Now I've got this marker on here, and I'm not sure if that's the last time I showed it on the podcast, that's where I was maybe, or if I forgot to move the marker after I showed you on the podcast previously. But since I picked it up at Christmas, I have added maybe 2 inches since that marker, something like that. But as I said, I'm really, really happy with this. I do love the colours, and one of my goals is to get this finished, obviously this year, but I really want to work on it and actually get it done, because I can't wait to be able to wear it. I'm hoping it'll fit. I'm sure it will. I'm sure it will. But yeah, so this is my breathing space, and I'm knitting this out of Giddy yarns again. This is on my Giddy sock base, so it's a 75/25 merino nylon, and the grey colour is Storm Cloud. This is the original Storm Cloud. I put some Storm Cloud in the shop just before Christmas, and it was a much lighter batch than this. And I'm intending on having some Storm Cloud in the next shop update, and hopefully it will be darker again, like this. And the colour I'm using for the stripe is Spearmint, which I've never put in the shop. But I might have to do at some point. And I can show you the colours a bit better. So this is Storm Cloud. And this, if I can get it out of the bag, is Spearmint. So yeah, that is my breathing space. And I didn't say, breathing space is a pattern by Vera Valimaki, although I've talked about it on the podcast a number of times, so I'm sure you know all the information by now. And it's a very, very popular pattern at the moment. A lot of people seem to be knitting it. And it's living in my Shakespeare and Company tote bag that Tom brought me back from Paris when he went there with work a while ago. Because I don't have any big project bags, basically. Okay, so that is my whip. So let's move on to some new cast-ons. If I can not lose my voice. Okay, so I will start with my Christmas Eve cast-on, which is living in one of my bags. Now, this is a little funny story, and it also ties a little bit into yarny goodness. My mum and dad they bought me some yarn for Christmas when they went to San Francisco. But in the package to go with the yarn, my mum had heard me mention, and I'd shown her on Instagram ages and ages ago, naughty knitting sacks, and how much I loved them and how brilliant I thought they were. And bless her, she had ordered me one for Christmas. She was so disappointed when Katie sent me some as part of the Get Your Yarn Wishes Granted, because she was so worried that I would already have them and she'd be so up, But I did say to her, I can't have too many knitting bags, especially not this particular knitting bag. So, living in my naughty knitting sack from my mum, which is this one here, it's a gorgeous floral pattern on the outside, is my Christmas Eve cast on. And I will show you the inside quickly. It is the wonderful vagina print. So yeah, I was so happy to get 2 bags with this print on the inside. So I am knitting the Evergreen Socks, which is a pattern by Madeline Gannon. Just trying to find, there we go. And I have got half a finished object. I have finished one of the socks. Let me stick it on a sock blocker for you so you can see the pattern. And again, this pattern has been doing the rounds, but it seemed I'd picked the yarn up for this ages ago. When did I pick the yarn up for this? I think I picked the yarn up for this at Fibre East, so July last year. And I just didn't get around to knitting them for Christmas, which was kind of my plan. So I thought I would use them as my Christmas Eve cast on instead. Now I made a mistake on one of the Christmas trees, so I won't show you that side. I did stick it at the back. I made sure I put my heel in on the side that the mistake was, so it wouldn't be as noticeable. But here is the first finished sock. They're quite short socks if you knit them to the pattern. That doesn't bother me. I quite like short socks. But just to be aware that the pattern only has you knit 1.5 inches after the Christmas trees before you put the heel in. So they are actually quite short socks. But yeah, here we go. So there are my lovely little lace Christmas trees, which are actually showing up really nicely on the camera. I went for this sort of plainer yarn because I really wanted the Christmas trees to show up. Sorry, excuse me a second. I really wanted the Christmas trees to show up. And I've just dropped the yarn on the floor. Escaping yarn. So the yarn I'm using for this is Socks Yeah by Coop Knits. And it is a 75/25 merino nylon. And the colourway I'm using is Topaz. I'll show you on the back there. But yeah, so that is my first one, and I'm really, really pleased with this. In fact, if I get the light from the window to catch on you can really see there we go. And as I said, I'm knitting this on 2.5mm needles, so I'm getting a much, much better fabric, a much tighter fabric, which is what I'm kind of aiming for with my socks this year. So I've finished the first sock, and I have finished the lace on the second sock. Yeah, this is showing up so much better on the camera than I thought it was going to. I finished the Christmas trees, I finished the lace on the second sock, so I've got about 1 inch to knit before I put the heel in, and then I've obviously just got to do the foot. So these will be my second pair of Christmas socks that are going to go into my little Christmas sock box, which I'm planning on putting in that box just there. And And again, these won't count towards the Yarngasm box of socks, Cal, because I cast them on in 2017. But it doesn't matter, does it? You know, hopefully I'll be able to knit more than 12 pairs of socks this year anyway, so it won't matter. But as I said, I'm going to have my own little personal box of socks, Christmas socks for December, and these are going to go into that. So yeah, the yarn is just this gorgeous sort of green, greeny blue almost, sort of really sort of lovely colour. Yeah, and I think that's all I needed to tell you about that one. And I'm knitting these on Knit Pro. See if I can show you these. The Knit Pro Symphonies, which are the sort of the multicoloured wood needles, because at the time they were the only 2.5mm needles I had. And I'm not the biggest fan of knitting with wooden knitting needles. As I've mentioned before, I'm a tight knitter, and I find the grippiness of the wood makes it a lot slower to knit. I do much prefer metal needles. But these have been fine, and I didn't want to change it out through the sock because it would probably change my gauge and all that kind of stuff. So I will put up with the wooden needles until I've finished. Okay, so that's my first work in progress. Just pop everything back in the bag. And then my second work in progress is a hat. And I cast on the Olive and Jack hat, which is a pattern I've wanted to cast on for a long time. And this is once again living in one of my naughty knitting sacks. Just this gorgeous purple fabric, and I will show you the inside. And this one has the rabbits on the inside. So I've cast on the Olive and Jack hat, which is a paid for pattern on Ravelry. Oh, I should have said actually, the Evergreen Socks is a paid for pattern on Ravelry. Although I have to say I got it 50% off, I think, because she was doing a special offer when during the Stranded podcast during the festive sock along. So I think I got it 50% off. Anyway, this is the Olive and Jack hat, which is a cabled hat. Again, cables are not one of my fortes, so this is quite a new to me kind of skill. Although I have done a cabled hat before, and I did the antler cardigan. So I don't think I can use it to count towards my own knit along because it's not completely new to me. But anyway, and I am knitting this out of Anzula yarns. I'm wondering if I've got the label in here. I have got the label in here. I nearly spilt my tea. Right. Oh, it's a bit of a crazy label. I am knitting this out of Anzula yarns. Oh, sorry. My dad is ringing me. I will ring him back. One problem with ringing on your phone. As I said, I am knitting this out of Anzula yarns. And this is yarn that Tom bought me when he went to New York at the beginning of last year sometime. I can't quite remember when he went, but he went to New York last year with work, and this is one of the yarns he bought me back. So yeah, as I said, Anzula yarns. This is on their Cricket base, which is an MCN, a merino cashmere nylon. So it's 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere and 10% nylon. And this is the first time I've worked with an MCM. It's a DK weight, and it is so soft. The colourway is mauve. So it's just this gorgeous kind of pink, dusky pink colour. And I haven't got a lot to show you yet. I have finished the rib. And it starts with a 2x2 twisted rib, which I did do. I was very good. And I'm very glad I did do it because it's a lovely effect, the twisted rib. I'm not fussed on twisted rib for the top of socks, I have to say. But for the brim of a hat, I do think it looks lovely. See if I can get it to focus. There we go. So there's my 2x2 twisted rib. And I'm really happy with how this is knitting up so far. I have have I got to the point? No, I'm just about to do the setup row. I've finished the rib. I'm just about to do the setup row before I start the cables. So not a lot to show at the moment, but it's going to be a lovely hat. It's going to be nice and warm. The hat I've been wearing most that I've knit is my sockhead hat, which is not really warm enough for this weather currently. It's a little bit, I get cold ears still. So I'm hoping that this will be a little bit warmer and a little bit warmer over my ears, hopefully. Although to be fair, by the time I've finished it, the weather's probably going to be warming up. But next winter. Yeah, so this is the Olive and Jack hat, as I said. It's by Sarah Stevens. It's a paid for pattern on Ravelry, but it's a very, very well written pattern. And I've told you all the yarn information. What am I knitting this on? I am knitting this on 4.5mm Knit Pro Zings. Knit Pro Zings are kind of my needle of choice. They're very, very reasonable and I quite like them. So most of my projects are knit on Knit Pro Zings. The pattern calls for 4mm needles, but I've gone up a needle size because I often need to. So that's what I'm knitting with. And I've got my little, oh, I haven't shown those in the podcast. I might have to dig those out. I've got my little stitch marker there. I was really, really lucky. And actually, I'll talk about it in Yarny Goodness. I won a little prize as being the 3000th sale on an Etsy shop. And actually, I will dig out the stitch markers and I will show you what I received. Okay, so moving on to my next work in progress, which is my last work in progress, and it's another pair of socks. Sorry, jogging the camera a little bit there. And I am working on, in fact, this could be a new to me thing, actually. This can count towards my own knit along, because I am knitting my first ever pair of sock blank socks. And the yarn is this gorgeous sock blank here. Sorry, I'm just trying to, this gorgeous sock blank here. Which is by Amy of Stranded Dye Works. So this is her plateau base, which is her sock blank base. And the colourway is Party on Ice. So it's just this gorgeous sort of tonal blue with pops of violet and pink, and there's a little bit of black in there as well. And I am knitting a pair of socks. As I said, I've not got overly far. I need to trim my cast on tail because it's driving me a bit insane. But yeah, so here is the sock. And again, I'm knitting these on 2.5mm needles, but I have got some 2.5mm Knit Pro Zings now. So they are metal needles. And this is where I am. As you can see, it's a little bit jiggly. Yeah, jiggly. Let's go with jiggly. And that's because I'm knitting from the sock blank. Hopefully that should improve when I block the socks. I will actually need to block these, which I don't usually do with my socks. And I've thrown in a bit of pattern. And I put a call out on Instagram because I wanted to do something with these. I didn't want to just knit vanilla socks, but I wanted something that was still going to be pretty mindless. So I put a call out on Instagram, and actually Amy of Stranded Dye Works suggested a garter rib. And showed me a picture of a sock blank, a pair of socks she'd knit from a sock blank using the garter rib. So that's what I'm doing. So it's one row of knit and then one row of knit 2 purl 2. So it's really mindless and really, really simple, but it gives you sort of a nice ribbed sock. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that pattern down the leg, and then I'm going to do the foot in vanilla. Yeah, that's my plan. And if you've not knit from a sock blank before, which I haven't, but I've seen people doing it, this is what you're knitting with, basically. So the sock blank, right, I'm going to explain a sock blank now. So if anybody knows what a sock blank is, then apologies, but I'm sure there will be somebody out there who has not seen a sock blank before. So this is a sock blank. It is a piece of knitted fabric, so it's usually machine knit fabric, which is then dyed by the yarn dyer. as you can see. You get some that are dyed randomly like this, or some people paint them with pictures and things like that. This is the first one I've worked from. And basically what you do is you unravel the sock blank. So you just pull from here as you knit, and you knit with the yarn that you unravel. So as you knit with it, it is, as you can see, it's wiggly. And a lot of people don't like that. I'm finding it okay. And I think that might be because I'm quite a tight knitter. I tend to tension my yarn quite tight. So actually, as I'm knitting with it, I'm not knitting with something that's really jiggly. I'm actually knitting with something that's a lot straighter because of how I tension my yarn. But yeah, I know some people who love the effect that a sock blank can give in the way it knits up, and they will wind up the sock blank first, or they will wind it into a skein and soak it and leave it to dry, and then wind it into a cake so that it gets some of the jiggle out of it, basically. But yeah, it doesn't seem to be bothering me. I'll see how it goes for the whole sock, but I'm enjoying the process so far. What I'm really enjoying is that I really wanted to cast on a new pair of socks, and I couldn't be bothered to wind up any yarn, so I was able to just grab this and cast it on straight from here without having to wind up any yarn. Which I guess I could have done with commercial yarn too, because I could have knit straight from the ball, but that's beside the point. So yeah, sock blank socks. And the yarn, as I said, it's her plateau base, which again is a 75-25 merino nylon, but in sock blank form, and the colourway is Party on Ice. These will be my first box of socks pair for the year. The first socks that I've cast on in 2018 and hopefully finished in 2018. But because they're kind of wintry, being sort of Party on Ice and stuff, I think these might go into my little Christmas box as well. Okay, yeah, so that is my final work in progress. So I was going to share a bit of blanket progress. And this week I was just going to share the progress that I've made on my crocheted square blanket. Because if you watched my Vlogmas, you'll know that I was using my yarny advent. I took part in the 24 Days of Cheer swap, which was sort of an advent mini skein swap, to create an advent calendar, but through leftovers and stash and swaps, basically. So I took part in that, and each day throughout Advent I crocheted up a square to add into my blanket. And I haven't actually shared the whole thing on my podcast yet, so I thought I would share it now that I've got it all crocheted up. I haven't actually joined it yet, but I will explain why in a minute. But I thought I'd share these and let you know what all the yarns were, because I know I shared some of them on Vlogmas, but I didn't actually share all the different yarns. So, sorry, got things banging and crashing there. Where did I start? I have got them all written down in my book. I've written down all of my squares, all of the squares that have been added to this blanket. All the yarns have been written down in this book, so that I can keep up with them. So let me just put that there so that I can see it. So I started with this one here, was the first square, and this was Mountain Colour in the Ruby River colourway. And this is quite interesting. So this was a 60% superwash wool, 25% mohair, 15% nylon. So a slightly different base. Then this one is Hort Yarn in Moving Too Fast, which is a Stellina base. I don't know whether you're going to be able to see that. This one was No Makers in the Eggnog colourway. And then we had an O Loops. These ones didn't have colourway names, but there was O Loops in that lovely purple, O Loops again in this gorgeous sort of variegated. And then I had No Makers in the Fruitcake colourway. This is a Hue Loco yarn. It's called Staccato, and it was on her tweed base. Then we had another O Loops there. Then this one is Biscotti Yarns in the Ladybug colourway, and I think this would have been self-striping. I think it would be really interesting to have seen this knit up. And then we've got Cherry Tree Hill in the Dusk colourway. And then No Makers again in the Eddie Griswold colourway. And then finally on this row we had a Space Cadet. The Space Cadet all had numbers, and I've kind of lost track of which number was which colourway, but that doesn't bother me. But so this is one of the ones from Space Cadet. And then coming back over to this side, I'll turn it round. We had Yarn Ink in the Empress colourway. Another lovely O Loops one, and then this one was Space Cadet. This one was No Makers in the Mistletoe colourway. Bit ends everywhere. In the Mistletoe colourway. This one was Miss Babs in the Fireball colourway. And then we had No Makers in the Elf Pooped in My Stocking colourway. Okay, so this one, this one is slightly different. This one is actually mine. This is Giddy Yarns. The mini for this day was a Madeline Tosh DK weight yarn. And I had a couple in here which were slightly heavier weight yarns, and I didn't quite make a whole square, and that one was clearly a DK weight and I didn't think I'd get a square out of it. So I kind of substituted it for some leftovers I had for Giddy Yarns, but it's the Robin Redbreast self-striping colourway. So I thought it was quite festive and Christmassy anyway, so that's just in there. And then this one was a Space Cadet one. I need to turn the page. This one is, am I showing you the back? No, I'm not. This one is Knitterly Things in the True Colours colourway, which is a lovely sort of, I think it would be a rainbow self-striping. Another Space Cadet one, another O Loops one, and then finally we finish off with another Space Cadet one. So yeah, I was really happy with that. So that's my 24 squares all crocheted up into rows for my blanket. And I've already got 4 rows in the blanket so far. So this will make 6. Now, the reason these aren't joined is because I have run out of the grey that I was using to join. And I did talk about this last time on the podcast, I think. And I've had a little look, and a couple of people have suggested a few places where I might be able to get it. I was using Cascade Heritage, their sock yarn base, so it's 75-25 merino nylon in the grey colour. But it looks like that colour has been discontinued and they've introduced a steel. Now, I'm aware that I could go and have a little look. I could buy a skein of steel and see how close it is. But then I thought to myself, you know, I'm buying a skein for this. I've used 2 skeins already in this project. So what I'm thinking of doing is I'm going to dye up a light grey, probably my Rain Cloud colourway, and I'm going to use that. And I'm aware that it's not going to match completely. My Rain Cloud is probably likely to be a little bit more tonal than this. This is very much a very solid grey. But I'm not overly worried. I think because the blanket is going to be so crazy and colourful anyway, I don't think your eyes are going to get drawn to the fact that the greys change slightly. So that is my plan. And I've currently got 2 skeins of Rain Cloud drying in the lounge. For me. I will do some for the shop, but there are 2 skeins drying for me in the lounge. So I will be able to do that. But this is coming along, and once they're dry, I'm going to join these 2 together. But I got a little bit obsessed because I kind of got used to the fact that I was crocheting up a square every single day. So I got a little bit obsessed. And I crocheted up a load of squares over sort of the week before we went skiing. So I've got Pumpkin Patch. These were some random minis that I received through the Get Your Yarny Wishes Granted. That was the yarn I used to knit my mum's mittens. That's my Glacier leftovers. Oh, that's the leftovers from the yarn I used for Arthur's mittens. That's a really old hand-dyed one that I did with food colouring ages ago. Oh, and that's my Shell Cottage, which was the pair of socks I finished last year. So that was Paper Stories. So yeah, so I've got, how many have I got? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 squares already crocheted up. So that's nearly a row. It's 12 in a row. So yeah, that's kind of my plan. Once that grey's dry, I'm going to get another row in there. I've been really enjoying working on that blanket. I won't share my granny striped blanket because I've not made masses of progress on that since I last showed it. Yeah, because I've been doing this one with all the Advent minis. I've not been working on them both at the same time. Okay, so moving on. Whoops. In fact, I'll just show you this. So this is my little book. This is kind of my knitting book. I can't read what that says. What did it say? Let your mind wander. I don't know. It was just a book I picked up in Tesco's. And I've got all my projects in here. Most of the early ones have got yarn attached, so little bits of yarn of what I've used, little notes about projects. Some of the later ones I haven't got around to putting yarn in yet. But it's just a sort of a record of what I've been doing. And then at the back I've been putting in the all the squares for my blanket, as I kind of showed you. And then I'm also keeping a track of my stash in and out for the year, basically. I kind of lost track of it towards the end of last year. I forgot to do it, so I'm starting again from this year. And I've gone through and sort of made a note of everything that's in my stash and how much I've got, and then I've got like an in and out kind of thing to update throughout the year. So if people are interested, I might update you with that later on in the year. Right, so moving on to yarny goodness. I've got quite a lot of yarny goodness to share with you. And actually, only 2 bits of it for Christmas. Ouch, my foot's going to sleep. Sorry, I need to just move a bit. There we go. Okay, so I will start with the Christmas presents because these are probably the more interesting. Well, actually, only one of them's a Christmas present, but the other one is from my Advent swap. And in fact, I'll share that one first. So I took part, as I said, in the 24 Days of Christmas Cheer, and I joined in with the option of having a full skein for the 25th day, and this is what I received. So this is No Makers in the Under the Tree colourway. So these gorgeous kind of Christmassy colours, golds and reds. It's a really fun variegated colourway. And this is on a merino cashmere nylon base. So it's so super soft and so squishy. And it is absolutely lovely. And the colourway, as I said, is Under the Tree. And it's so nice to have some yarn. I mean, obviously No Makers is an American brand, an American yarn dyer. So it's not very easy to get hold of over here. I mean, I could order, but by the time you've paid extra shipping and then you'd probably have to pay customs, it all adds up. So one of the things that I find is really lovely about doing swaps is if you can choose an international swap, then, I mean, fair enough, again, postage when you're sending your swap partner their postage things is still good, but often you can get, you know, yarns that you wouldn't normally get hold of through that swap. And in fact, most of my American yarns have come to me that way. So yeah, as I said, No Makers in the Under the Tree colourway. And this is an MCN, so it's 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere and 10% nylon. And this will get knit up at some point into Christmas socks for next Christmas. Right, where am I going to put all this stuff? I've got no idea. Let's just put it there and hope I don't drop the camera. So then, as I said, my parents bought me some yarn. They were in San Francisco earlier in the year and I directed them to a yarn shop. And while they were there, they bought me a Christmas present. And this is what they got me. So this is Dreams in Colour yarn, which again, I'd heard of, but I don't know particularly well, on their smushy base. And the colourway is Wilderness. It's a 100% superwash merino, and it's actually 4 ounces. So I think it's, I don't quite know what that works out to in grams, but it's over 100 grams of yarn. So this is just stunning. I mean, these gorgeous sort of greens and browns down that end, and then it goes into this wonderful violet purple at the other end with the blues in there too. Really, really, really pretty. So I've got no idea what this is going to become, but it may have to become some kind of shawl or some kind of big cowl or something. I'm not sure. We will see, but I'm really, really, really pleased with this. And then I have to admit I bought myself a few bits and pieces. So the first thing I bought, I ordered online some sock needles because, as I said, I was hoping to start knitting with 2.5mm and I didn't have very many, so I got two 80cm ones for Magic Loop, and then I also picked up a 100cm one so that I can have a go at doing 2 at a time socks on a slightly longer needle. So that was that, and then while I was ordering that, I had to come home also from the online shop. I don't know, a couple of things had to come home to me. The first one was some Stylecraft head over heels. It's all commercial sock yarn that I picked up. And this is in the Ben Nevis colourway. But it's kind of, I think it's going to be a sort of a gorgeous kind of rainbowy self-striping. And then I also picked up, this is kind of for Tom. This is West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply. And the colourway number is there. I think this is the pheasant colourway. I'm not 100% sure, but I think this is the pheasant colourway. And West Yorkshire Spinners this is 75% wool, 25% nylon, but it contains 35% blue-faced Leicester. And Tom is loving his BFL socks at the moment, so I thought this would be really good for him. This is just 75% wool, 25% nylon. Superwash again. But pretty standard commercial sock yarn base, the Stylecraft. And then I had to pop into my local yarn store whilst I was in Cornwall, of course. And they don't do a lot. It's mostly, well, it seems to be improving actually. It's mostly acrylics, which, considering the clientele of Helston in Cornwall, I can understand that, you know, most of the people that they get in there are going to be knitting baby knits in acrylic and things like that, which is perfectly fine. But I did find some sock yarn, and I picked up this ball of King Cole Zigzag, and I have not used King Cole Zigzag before, but I just thought I'd give it a go. It's a 75% superwash wool, 25% nylon, so again a pretty standard sock base, and the colourway is Summer. And I had a little look online, I did a little image search, and it looks like they knit up really, really fun. So that is another pair of another sock yarn for a pair of commercial socks. I enjoy my commercial sock yarn socks. They're the type of socks that I feel really happy sticking in when I know we're going to be going for a long walk in boots and stuff like that. You know, I'm not quite so precious about them. Not that I'm precious about my socks at all, but that's kind of my thinking. So yeah, I picked up that one. And then I also picked up a couple of balls of, which still got the prices on them, so I'm going to take those off. A couple of balls of, it's escaping from me. This, which is kind of, it's King Cole is the brand. It's a Merino Blend DK. So it's 100% wool, 100% superwash wool, 100% pure new wool, it says. And I picked up these two colours. So this is Amethyst and Oatmeal. And my plan for this is a pair of Selby mittens. And actually, I was lucky enough over Christmas or New Year to win a little giveaway on Instagram for a pattern of a pattern from Ravelry, and I chose the Selby mittens as the pattern that I would love to win, and I was lucky enough to win. So actually, I've got the pattern all ready to go. So I will be casting these on very, very soon. I'm not quite sure which way round I'm going to do it, which is going to be which colour, but I will have a little bit of a play. But I thought these would be quite fun together. So yeah, so that is all my yarny goodness. Quite a little bit for the moment, but hopefully there won't be any more coming in until unravel on the 17th of February. But we will see. Okay, so that is it for all the major sort of yarny content apart from shop news of the show. But I did want to share in shop news a few little bits and pieces. So I will move on now to shop news. Okay, so basic stuff. I haven't got anything to show that's currently going into the shop. I'm having a shop update on the 1st of February, hopefully. That's the plan, but I think I've overworked myself. I've got all the February flower fairies to get dyed up in the next week. I've got my Valentine's self-striping that I still need to get dyed up and wound and sent out on the 1st of February. And then I'm also planning to do a shop update on the 1st of February, which I need to dye yarn for. So yeah, a little bit chaotic, but I'm sure it'll be fine. So as I said, I'm planning a shop update on the 1st of February. There'll be a lot of Valentine's colourways going in the shop. I'm doing a few one-of-a-kind kind of things, so non-repeatable kind of things. Basically, I want to be able to dye some yarn at the same time as doing the flower fairies, but the flower fairies I dye on the hob in the fish kettles, and I've only got 4 burners, and the fish kettles take 2 burners each. So I'm doing some dyeing in the slow cooker, but I find that stuff that I dye in the slow cooker is less repeatable. So I'm kind of just having a bit of fun with Valentine's colourways, basically. They'll only be up in the shop once. They're only going to go up in the shop on the 1st of February. So I thought, why not? I'll just have a bit of fun. And I'm just going to create some random Valentine's colourways that are not necessarily repeatable, but are just super fun. So they'll be going up in the shop on the 1st of February. I'm also going to be doing some sock sets, including some repeat ones. I'm hoping to have a couple of rainbowy kind of themed things because Diane of Suburban Stitcher is hosting her Rainbow Along again throughout February. So if anybody is interested in taking part in that, I'm going to have some Stormy Rainbow, which would be suitable. And I'm also going to have, so I think I might do some rainbow drops as well. And although that's not necessarily rainbow coloured, it's rainbow in the name, so hopefully that would be acceptable too. But the main thing I wanted to touch on for shop news, and I'm so sorry about my cough, is I thought I would just give you a little show and tell of my Christmas stuff. So obviously these were all mystery clubs, so I wasn't able to reveal them or show them before Christmas, but I ran pre-orders for 12 Days of Christmas, and then I also did a mystery yarn and a mystery bag, and you could order a combination of that. So the mystery yarn was this one here, which I'm showing to you. Oh no, I put the label back on upside down. That's what's wrong. I put the label back on upside down. Here we go. It's not particularly well skeined, I'm afraid. It's been hidden away in a box for a while. But the mystery yarn was this one here. And yes, I did, Tom helped me and he did adapt my logo as a Christmas logo. So this is Christmas Morning Chaos. So it's inspired by the traditional red and green of Christmas with the chaos of kids opening their presents, which is sort of represented by the crazy speckles at the top. This was dyed on Stellina base. So yeah, so that was the mystery skein. So that was Christmas Morning Chaos. And again, this is mine. So this is going to get knit up into a pair of Christmas socks to go in my box for next year. I don't have a number that I'm aiming for, by the way. I'm just, whatever I fancy in terms of knitting Christmas socks will go into that box if they're Christmas themed. So that is that one. This is the bag. And I haven't been doing a lot of bags for the shop. I find it's very time consuming and yeah, I might do some occasionally, but the yarn has taken off so well that I just don't have time to be doing bags as well. But this was the Christmas bag. So it's just these gorgeous little wintry bears with their scarves and hats on. Snowflakes for the top. And then there's this lovely sort of grey star contrast lining. And I even found some Christmassy ribbon that went really, really, really well as well. And I got new little labels. Oh, that's upside down. I got new little labels as well. So yeah, so I'm going to start using that. I think I'm thinking that any socks that I'm knitting to go in my Christmas box, I might use my Christmas bag to put them in. And then this was the major thing. So this was the 12 Days of Christmas minis. and here they all are. I will just run through them. I've got no idea what order I sent them out in. I know I sent them all out in the same order, but I can't for the life of me remember. But I will just run you through the colourways quickly. So I'm just going to stick them there. Right, let's start with this one here. So this was Sprouts, just a tonal green inspired by Brussels sprouts, which we all have with Christmas dinner in the UK. Then we had Christmas Tree Fairy. So it's just a variegated green and pink on Stellina. Candy Cane, pretty simple but pretty. Grandma's Gravy, so again just a tonal brown. Christmas Star, which was just this gorgeous tonal yellow. Vintage Tree Lights, so it's this blue, red and yellow speckled on a kind of a sepia kind of base on Stellina. Icicles, which is this one here, which is this blue speckled, again on a Stellina base. Starry Night, which is this one here, so this was blue with pops of white in there, and again on a Stellina base. Chestnuts Roasting, so it's inspired by chestnuts roasting on an open fire, so you've got kind of the fiery colours and then the chestnut colour there too. Radioactive Snowman, this one was named by Tom, but it's just a crazy speckled on an undyed base. This one is, the ones that I sent out had a lot more white in them. I kept the one that wasn't quite 100%. But this was When Santa Got Stuck Up the Chimney. So it's sort of whites, reds and blacks. And then finally, this one, I don't know how well this will come across. Hopefully it's not going to blow out. This was Hoarfrost. Oh no, that's fine. It is pale greens, tiny bit of pale brown on a Stellina base. And I love this. This one might have to come back as a full colourway next winter. And in fact, some of them might have to. I really liked When Santa Got Stuck Up the Chimney. And I really liked Christmas Tree Fairy as well. So these may have to come back as full colourways next year. I'm not sure. We will wait and see. But yeah, I just wanted to show you those. Oh, pardon me, to give you a bit of an idea of the Christmas colourways that I did this year. Because next Christmas, although it's a long time away, I am planning on doing a full advent calendar, which is a little bit daunting. Mind you, Arthur will be in school by then, so hopefully I'll have a bit more time. So, yeah, I just thought I would share those with you to give you a little bit of a taste of what people received this year. Okay, so that is everything. Shop update on the 1st of February. If you're interested, I will be podcasting again in 2 weeks' time. And yeah, I was hoping to touch on my knitting goals and things like that, but I think this podcast is going to be really, really long anyway. So I will talk about those as they come up throughout the year, I think. I might talk about them next week. I don't know. Next week will be my podiversary. I have got no idea whether I'm going to do anything special for it, apart from the giveaway. The giveaway. Do not forget the giveaway for the Naughty Knitting Sacks bag and yarn. Podiversary giveaway. It will be in the Ravelry group. So head on over to the Ravelry group and enter the giveaway, please. Yeah, okay, bit crazy. I feel like I'm completely out of practice. Although I've been vlogging, podcasting and sitting down and doing a proper podcast, I feel like I've been crazily out of practice doing. But anyway, I will leave you there. I will see you in 2 weeks' time with another proper podcast. And yeah, I hope you have a lovely couple of weeks and get lots of knitting time and that things aren't as crazy busy for you as they are for me. See you soon. Bye.